This is UNSC Pelican Echo 216. Can you hear me? This is UNS...
It's been almost 4 years since the release of Halo Infinite, and as many of you know, its initial launch left much to be desired. People since then had the question, what happened during Infinite's development? Most of what we know today is through reports from journalists and ex-developers. A couple of months ago though, 2 documentaries were released on the internet that weren't necessarily made for the public eye to see. Both of them were made in 2017 by Dan Chosich, who would go on to direct the E3 2018 and 2019 videos for Halo Infinite. Why We Fight was made to be shown internally towards the team at 343 Industries, and the promise was intended towards Xbox executives. These documentaries offer a glimpse of the state 343 Industries was in at the time, the challenges they were facing, and how they were tackling it with Project Olympus, better known today as Halo Infinite. Looking at these videos years later and being a fan of the game today really does leave a sorrowful feeling in my heart of what could have been, because it really seemed like 343 were on the right path, but in the end, they were never able to fulfill their promise. So today we're going to be analyzing these documentaries and asking a different question. What was the original plan for Halo Infinite? Before we start though, this is by no means to hate on the former developers of 343 Industries or the current developers at Halo Studios. Please don't do that. I think these are wonderfully made documentaries, and I believe people should be given more context as to what happened with the game and how the developers felt at the time. With that being said, let's continue on with the video. The year is 1999. No. We are not going that far into the past. It's 2016. After the release of Halo 5, the game had garnered mixed reviews, with both its campaign and multiplayer being controversial to the fanbase. It's clear that 343 needed to sit down for their next project and rethink their approach. But 343 had also been going through studio problems at the same time. In December 2016, the team underwent significant changes, marked by the departure of several key members. So not only did 343 have to rethink their approach to the franchise, they also needed to restructure as a whole in order to have a unified vision.
Well, yeah, vision's supposed to carry you through things. It's not just to when we ship. It's got to be like a long-term thing. And then on top of that is the why we're here. Like that's the kind of mission statement of the team. Like that goes between games. That should live forever.
This is what the documentary Why We Fight was made for. Some context from Chosich's description here. Its purpose was to amplify the vision and voices driving the next Halo title. This was never created with the aim for public consumption or to market anything beyond the goals and beliefs that the directors had for the game. And you know what? It seemed needed. The gaming landscape was shifting.
5 years ago, there was such a focus in the industry and in our medium of the blockbuster mentality, and it kept escalating year over year.
The middle end of gaming has like dropped out. AA games are kind of like dead now, and it's pretty much AAA and like indie games.
Eventually, we kind of assumed the bubble would break, or they would just break under stress, right? And we started losing track of sort of the soul of it all.
Our new dog model.
It's always so funny to me that one of the signs at the time that the gaming industry was changing was Call of Duty Ghosts and the dog model. But instead of continuing the path they were on, with their next game, Project Olympus, they had to look back and ask themselves, what made this franchise so special?
Yeah, there's the impact. There's nothing we can do.
That feeling that Halo gave a lot of people.
Checkpoint, and you gotta go over here, and they coming down with all these ships, and they trying to get you.
I think that's a feeling you can get from any game you play that is done that really speaks to you.
And I'm hoping that we're kind of coming around to wanting to find that soul again.
But that recognition is important before trying to recreate that magic that Halo had. The leaders at 343 at the time were trying to reignite the sense of wonder and discovery of the original trilogy. More specifically, Combat Evolved.
With CE and with the early games, it was more kind of that World War II, like you're clear cut, right? It's like, I know this has to happen, and I'm the one to do it.
What I love about that game is there's moments of like isolation and that kind of like, I'm lost in a bigger world. People kind of relate to that inside.
That sense of solitude is important for setting up the mysteries, I think, right? Where you're not gonna have that answer person that is with you all the time, kind of keeping you going.
Rolling up on your first kind of Forerunner little cropping or base, like, that was a big moment. Like, what is this thing? It was mysterious, it's interesting, and those things kept kind of engaging me to keep pushing further.
They needed to build a foundation that'll win the audience back with a definitive Halo title to play. It's clear that 343 had the idea of an open world Halo ring early on, along with concepts of wildlife like the Crusher. Of course, the open world did make it to the final product, but wildlife seemed to have been scrapped later on, with its last appearance at the 2018 reveal. But 343 also seemed to have more in mind for the open world with these concept arts.
Before, it was about getting it done and working overtime and hitting our dates and stuff, and that was very important to me. And now that's not. To me, that's just something maybe you have to do if you made bad mistakes in the beginning, right? To me now, it's like we need to set ourselves up for success with a good idea.
That is a statement that unfortunately would not age well when it comes to Halo Infinite. But regardless, at the time, the studio seemed committed to being introspective with themselves in order to create their best work yet.
We have a foundation, we have this amazing franchise.
The other way to say that is I want to make people feel something.
We now have the right people to do something that is actually an evolution in a meaningful way.
It's not just about the art. It's not just about the design. It's not just about the UI. It'll be all the smart choices we made along the way that come together into something really awesome.
I think the state of Halo today is, it's an interesting question.
And if we're willing to ask that question and answer it with some actions, that's a fundamental change.
When I think about what we did on Halo 4 and Halo 5, we're always trying to do something that had a huge amount of ambition.
With Halo 5, our dialogue with the public is more around that power fantasy.
And so we focused a lot on sandbox, we focused on fair stars, we focused on all of these things that made kind of classic Halo great for the core.
It's easy to take what's new and compare it to other games, but doing so accomplishes little. Halo 5 is easily one of the best playing shooters of the year, and it reaches this height on its own terms.
People were proud of their individual components. I think when we took all of them and put them together into the game, the team as a whole felt that we didn't achieve what we wanted with the holistic experience.
If only the story met the same standard. There are times when the game makes narrative leaps that don't add up.
I think we had multiple dialogues, and that was the problem.
But nothing from that podcast is ever even explored.
My interpretation is we didn't know what that dialogue looked like. We just kind of started talking.
I feel like the more we talk about Halo's story, the more I'm like, Halo's story is kind of dumb. I'm gonna be honest, guys.
It's gotten rough. 5 took us there, man.
Yeah.
It's all Halo 5's fault.
Fix it, right the ship, or we're just gonna keep declining.
In 2017, Project Olympus was having trouble finding its footing, so in October of that same year, Dan Chosich released a pitch documentary in order to greenlight funding for Halo Infinite. It was created to remind people why Halo mattered to fans and to Xbox. Despite the campaign shortcomings of Halo 5, the franchise still had power, and I believe that reconnecting with its roots was key to moving it forward.
If we put Halo on something and it's a high quality product, people are gonna be interested in checking it out.
There is no better way to clean the slate than a reboot.
By rebooting, taking things back, kind of simplifying the core elements, it lets us return to really the fundamental things that made Halo special.
That's what Legacy Halo is to me. It's the gameplay that introduced something that no other game within the industry had.
And I think what really has changed for me is value of that legacy.
Halo Infinite was intended to be a spiritual reboot and successor to the originals, as it takes a step back from Halo 5's philosophy. But at the same time, 343 also wanted to move the franchise in a new direction, taking the steps to make a live service Halo. Now wait, before everybody starts getting mad, this documentary released 1 month after Fortnite's Battle Royale. It was just starting out, and I don't think anybody could have ever predicted how massive it would become and how it forever changed the game industry with its live service model. It's not to say that live service didn't exist before. Halo 5 had that, but the problem with Halo 5's post-launch content is that while it did release so much in the span of months, it burned out a lot of the development team due to the amount of crunch time they had to face, which is also the reason why they took a longer time to create Halo Infinite.
All of this effort we're doing around the toolset is crucial to the longevity of the studio.
It's really solidifying our ability to be a full service. You don't just make content and walk away from it, which means we need better workflows to allow us to iterate and create that content faster and easier.
I do believe though that throughout that long span of development, the rise of free-to-play and live service models definitely had to have influenced some of the decisions by 343's leadership. What I like about these documentaries though is how we get to see another side of the developers, one where we can clearly see they were passionate about the franchise.
That was one of the things that got me hooked on Halo and playing multiplayer with friends, was just that excitement and the trash talking and the laughing.
It was that defining from those years of my life where all I thought about was when is the next time I'm getting together with a bunch of people and kicking someone's ass in Halo.
And you may want to cut this one, but we would literally do victory laps around players. So we would have someone singing in the front.
The just kind of goofy romping that we'd have, beating each other up and yelling at each other, that's the stuff that sticks with me in the long run.
I'm not going to forget that forever, and I'm sure that the team that we faced will never forget that either.
And they want new and old audiences to be able to create those kinds of memories, but with a game that is reminiscent of Halo's legacy.
So many people talk about not the fact that it was 60 FPS or the fact that the ring was this big open space, but they talk about the memories they have playing with people.
Halo is a universal franchise. It should be for more people.
There's players out there that want to play Halo. They want to get into it, but there's that barrier, and so we're attacking those barriers.
Players discover games, they're watching their favorite streamers. How do we make our game more watchable and more visually interesting?
How does our game differentiate, and how do we make something that feels new and fresh but feels like Halo to its core?
The studio had been researching ways to improve their workflow with a modern game engine. This is because the Blam engine they had been using up until now was pretty outdated, especially when it came to designing an open world and live service. Even Bungie admitted that by 2008 it was beginning to show its age, and there were many core systems that were ill-suited to a modern game development environment. So after years of development on it, it started to become pretty difficult to maintain it due to all the technical debt. This is why Bungie created the Tiger engine, which was a modified version of Blam. 343 Industries had two choices. They could either follow the footsteps of their predecessors or go a different route.
I decided that the most important thing that we could do was investigate, could we make a better game in Unreal?
Well, let's take a look at it. Instead of spending man-years of time building the tool set, maybe we can buy the tool set and then spend the time trying to recreate our game experience in that engine.
Because Unreal's pipeline and what artists can do in Unreal is extremely powerful.
At the end of the leadership offsite, we asked for a vote of where people stood on the engine.
And what we found through the investigation was that the Halo engine actually is a much more powerful engine at runtime.
The result of that vote was about 85% roughly to stay in our engine.
It would have been like another 2 man-years of work to replicate our in-game systems that kind of make Halo Halo, and then we would be able to play the game we have today in the Play Lab.
Even 8 years ago, the talks of Unreal Engine were there at the studio, but ultimately they chose to stick with their current engine. The biggest problem with Unreal at the time was recreating the scope of Halo and converting everything they had into a different engine, a concern that many fans today still have. Of course, this meant that 343 would go on to develop the Slipspace engine, a modified and revamped version of Blam that would fit their needs, a decision that ultimately would be their undoing.
Is that we need to be critically thinking about where we are in order to make a large leap forward.
Arena was critical to start with.
Rather happy to share that even before the free play period, Halo 5 has had the highest monthly active players for a Halo title since Halo 3.
Since 3. That was like one of their biggest.
That
was,
yeah.
It also, was the biggest, right? Well, yeah, until now.
I honestly did not know that. Okay, Halo 5 fans, you can have that one. But let's listen to the rest of the clip.
Our #1 priority was making that multiplayer competitive because we wanted to bring back the HCS. And I think we nailed that.
Amazing when you watch it on a hyper-competitive level, but as a new player, it's overwhelming.
We're in a fine line between renovation and classical legacy.
We still need to evolve, we still need to grow and expand, but we need that legacy as a foundation rather than throwing it out, build upon it.
There's a tons of things that we've done that sometimes were great, but that added a lot of cluttering and noise. We want to make sure that all these visuals will be clearer, more readable for the players, and instantly recognizable as something that will be more connected to classic Halo.
A pretty basic summary of what was good and bad about Halo 5's multiplayer. But when they talked about mixing old and new, that is what I like about Infinite's art style. Something about it looks sleek and clean. It's not as complex as 343's previous games and goes back to the roots of classic Halo, albeit a different take on it. I truly hope that they keep this art style in the future, but I also hope that Halo Studios will expand on 343's vision for a multiplayer narrative.
We're going to start seeding in the context for what's going on right away. And it'll be, in a light way, instilled in everything you're doing. And so the front end is a good example of that because it's the first thing any player will see. Pocket levels are a thing that we will have and do have, and those will change every quarter in some way. We have this concept of these pocket levels, and that is fully immersing the UI into the context.
For us, in a lot of ways, that's where starting with your multiplayer Spartan and having a little bit of a story that kind of starts there, I think will help start to bridge that gap a little bit. Like, oh, this even has a narrative context well before the campaign even shows up.
And so I come in as like, oh, okay, I'm already in the Bay of the Infinity, and I see a bunch of recruits. The thing that I personally like about this recruitment aligning with the players and the product and what's happening in the universe is it's speaking to you as a player.
343 had much larger plans for the Academy in order to introduce players not only to the world of Halo as their own Spartans, but also to Halo's gameplay in a friendly manner.
And he's got his recruitment armor on, right, and he's in the foreground of the pocket level, and he's looking off, and there's a bunch of people in line, and they're all kind of joining up.
When we talk about onboarding, we talk about Spartan Academies. We know that if you go into multiplayer, you don't kill anyone, you die a lot, you don't come back.
If you've never played Halo before, even if you've never played a shooter before, we want to provide safe spaces for you to learn the controls and learn our maps and learn our modes and play against bot opponents if you're too intimidated by human opponents.
Like ramping people up in a way that you feel like you are getting better and there's a huge amount of depth to it.
But you're also going to have these quarterly beats where we have new content, new modes, and new experiences coming out. And the UI will kind of expand over time and grow to reflect the new activities that you can do in the game.
Here you can see some of their initial plans for the live service, with the multiplayer releasing in 2019 and having operations like we do today in Infinite. The campaign would have been released in 2020 with the open world Halo ring, and 2021 would have introduced an expansion to the campaign with Atriox and the Warlord system. Of course, all of this was tentative, but you see glimpses of it make it to the final game, like the Warlords, except Escharum is the one leading them. And something I would have loved to see from this is how the menu changes with each major update, something that Infinite did for a little bit in multiplayer, but eventually stopped. And most of what I've talked about did end up making it to Infinite's final release, albeit not as originally envisioned. But one system they talk about in the documentary never made it to the light of day.
Sockets are about giving players the choice to play the way they want to play.
It's a foundation that allows us to modularize gameplay functionality. And these components can be added or removed from the different sandbox items, and that's like your armor, weapons, vehicles. What that gives us is great potential to innovate with new types of gameplay. If all you have is a weapon and you're better at using a weapon than I am, well, you're always going to be better than me. But if I have the potential to play a support role, that allows me to be a valuable contributing member just by adding new abilities or new features through the sockets.
With sockets being an introduction to classes in Halo, that would have been a major controversy if it made it into Arena. But that's not to say it couldn't have worked if it had its own unique game mode like Warzone. It would have been a creative way for people to make builds of their Spartans or weaponry, but most of our knowledge of the socket system is very limited.
We're going to give the player more control over the cosmetic appearance of their Spartan than we've ever had in any Halo game.
Leaving red versus blue in the past and letting players have their normal colors in-game.
We draw outlines. A blue outline means that's an ally, and then a red outline means that's an enemy. And it's really easy to pick that up, and you kind of don't even need to explain it to people.
As you play, you'll be able to see wear and tear on your suit. If you want to show people your battle scars that you've earned, you can.
This is just one of those moments where I know the modern gaming industry changed this idea, along with traditional career progression and cosmetics. I can't prove it, but I just feel like it has to be Fortnite's fault, because it really seemed like we were going to be able to pick our own colors instead of the coding system we have today.
The 2019 release will signal to fans of the franchise that the old modes of distribution are no longer necessary.
Our build-up and crescendo is the battle for the ring.
I don't have to wait 3 years between experiences arbitrarily
anymore. That's where the UNSC is going. That's where they need to go to save humanity.
Ever heard of the infamous Halo Infinite 10-year plan? This game really was intended to be that. Ultimately, it had to be scrapped due to numerous reasons. And what really cemented that was when Halo Studios announced they were moving to the Unreal Engine 5, forever leaving behind the Slipspace engine. Okay, now the year is 1999. The prototype and final build of Combat Evolved really inspired the direction 343 wanted to go with Infinite, and fully realized that open world aspect that it gave off.
Recognizing this is a place that I'm going to be able to explore, this is a place that I'm going to be able to move around and go to locations that maybe are off the beaten path, but have still been realized in the artist's mind.
Marooned on this Halo. They have to piece the story together of what happened. They have to piece together the plan of how do we move forward from here, and they have to piece together what's left of humanity.
As part of their mission of a spiritual reboot, 343 wanted to start with a clean slate, with a simple story, and for the player to explore multiple threads.
With our open structure, we can tell a very simple story in the core main thread that is very easy to understand. What I mean by easier to understand specifically is this main story thread is what we want to be as simple and straightforward as possible. But we have these subplots and these submissions directly connected to the main story, but it has its whole deep backstory in and of itself. They're still very first-class citizens. They have all the elements of a critical path mission, but they are opt-in.
We want people to fill in their own blanks.
Giving Cortana her own deep narrative in one of these ribs that is opt-in allows the player to feel ownership over that journey, and it brings you down all of the twists and turns and eventually ends in her redemption and her sacrifice and how you got to that point. Now, obviously, the player won't know this stuff explicitly right off the bat when they start. We want them to actually start with questions, and then throughout playing the game, they answer those questions. Titans have met. Cortana had a fail-safe built in that allowed her to do 3 very important things if she were to ever lose the ring and lose it to somebody who is going to use it for ill. First, the ring is moved into deep space. Second, an encoded message is sent to the UNSC. And the third thing that happens is Cortana sacrifices herself while she's on the ring and destroys a critical piece of it to prevent it from being fired. And that's why you see in the skybox this pretty meaningful scar.
The premise of Infinite back in 2017 is almost one-to-one with the game we got today. Cortana does end up sacrificing herself and blows up part of the ring, and we as the chief have to find out what happened. But we also see where the final product differs with the introduction of the game.
The game opens on this squad of Marines. They are going to some coordinates, and they're going to get the package. And they come around a corner, and at the end of the hallway, they see this device. Once they get close enough, Sentinels erupt from the rooms, ripping the Marines to shreds and cutting them down. But they did already activate that device, and as you can see, Chief is within the device in some sort of stasis or cryo. But during that sequence, we cut from the cinematic to first person, and the thing opens up, and you're him all over again. You come out, see the carnage, you scan them, and you find out they're from some UNSC camp, and it says you need to go north, and you leave the installation and you're on the ring. The UNSC is on the down and out. They've lost the battle for the ring. They are on the ropes, and they need someone to come in and lead them, and that's the player, that's Chief. For many, many months, the UNSC didn't know where he was, and so he comes in from the cold, in from the wilderness, joins up with the UNSC, and he's also introduced to a new Cortana AI in the process. He, at the time, doesn't know what's going on exactly, and the player doesn't either.
Resetting her so that she starts at the same level playing field that the player is and Chief is, and you get to experience that together. She'll have her own insight, but she won't have the literal knowledge to tell you what actually is happening.
Her arc will be this clean slate, fresh perspective that is being built up over time.
This concept would end up being the weapon, and I think 343 really did deliver on this new version of Cortana, who still has certain elements of her former counterpart, but is more naive and is more unbeknownst to what's happened in the Halo universe, that she sort of fits this perspective of someone who's a new player and just got into the franchise. 343 Industries was always ambitious. This documentary not only shows that, but they were taking the steps forward to make a game that would bring Halo back onto the main stage.
We really want to have people stay and give them an experience that makes them want to stay. And I think just doing something like Halo 5 again would not achieve that.
People want a game that's super sticky, that they want to come back to. They also want their friends to want to come back to it as well.
We need to be defined as an experience that is able to bring together players of all skill levels.
We'll be successful if we can keep our focus for the amount of years that we need to keep focus.
We will be successful with Olympus if we listen to our fans, try bold new things, things, iterate, and then continually improve along the way.
If you want to reinvigorate the franchise, compete with the changing landscape, you have to disrupt.
I think it is a challenge, but those kinds of challenges are what bring out the best in a studio.
I think the best thing I like about Halo is those crazy moments that happen during campaign or during multiplayer matches. So those are great moments that make players feel powerful and awesome.
We're just playing with this game because it feels good to play.
There are things that we do really well in terms of gameplay and will always stand out. They will stay unmatched for a very long time.
It should be therapeutic. If you create a game that is not therapeutic for people, you're not going to be successful.
You don't want to be overly sweaty. You don't want to be pounded on by a 12-year-old yelling about chocolate milk.
It's like, I want to maintain the performance we had before.
How can we be something that's different and potentially that next meaningful thing in video gaming?
I want to make it look freaking amazing.
It's a very long-term bet instead of a short-term bet, and I think that's one of the best things that we've done here.
And I want to spend time helping the art team generate content much easier.
I think we're on the road to success for sure.
It's multiplayer, it's campaign, it's story, it's everything. I want to bring the joy back to Halo.
I want to put the hungry back in Halo.
I want to make a game that feels like a phenomenon.
Halo Infinite would go on to release in 2021, and much to the disappointment of many fans, it was an unfinished game. When I saw that 2018 announcement trailer, I really thought this would be the one to bring the community together, the one to be free of controversies, the one that would be the definitive Halo title to play. However, when I got the game, I expected more. We expected more. The developers expected more. But for one reason or another, whether that be Microsoft, 343 leadership, the Slipspace engine, contract workers, or the state of the gaming industry itself, 343 couldn't fulfill their promise. In many ways, I love the game as it is right now, but I know it has its problems, and I knew it was intended to be something more, something great. The developers saw it too, and while the game is in a better state today, it's not in a state that the team at 343 had originally envisioned it would be in. I really do encourage you guys to watch these documentaries in full if you haven't already. I'll leave links in the description because it really showed a different side of the studio, that they were gonna make things right, and that they took a big gamble that unfortunately would not pay off. And you should know that out of the 28 employees shown in these documentaries, from what I found, only 3 are known to have stayed, 3 are unknown, and 22 of them are known to have left the studio either before Infinite's release or after it by 2023. That's also not including other notable staff that left, like Bonnie Ross, or the numerous amounts of people that got laid off by Xbox in recent years before the studio rebranded to Halo Studios. And I say this because it's important to recognize that while Halo Studios isn't the 343 we once knew, if they make a mistake with their first entries that is so egregious like Infinite's release or the drastic changes of Halo 5, then this rebranding will have been for nothing. And we are seeing the parallels today of a studio starting a new chapter of Halo, a studio that is transitioning into a new engine, a studio that wants to make things right. And much like before, the anticipation of it is frightening. And the lead up to the 2025 Halo World Championship, arguments and debates have risen of what the next Halo game should be or what it should have. Staff have left the studio, with some having very disgruntled remarks about their time there. Articles and rumors have surfaced that cause controversy, and some had to be debunked because the headlines suggest otherwise. All of this has been happening, and we haven't seen the game yet. And I, along with many other people, are just scared of what awaits, scared if the next Halo game is good, scared of what the community's response will be, scared to see if this franchise will fall to a lower point than it already has. But in a couple of hours, all of that will go away, and we'll find out soon enough. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to tune in later today for some of my final videos to be uploaded on the channel before the big reveal at the Halo World Championship. See y'all next time.